Welcome to Lifemap with Dr. Matt Jensen, a podcast dedicated to empowering teens and young adults. Join us on a journey of self-discovery as we tackle overcoming obstacles and challenges while igniting your true potential and rising to the best version of yourself. Here's your host, Dr. Matt Jensen.
Welcome back. We're going to continue our discussion with the one and only Frogman, decorated Navy SEAL, Don Mann. His bio is in my show notes. And this is our second segment because I just had to do more with Don. He is just such a pleasant individual. And I hope I hope Don doesn't take this the wrong way, but oftentimes when we think of Navy SEALs, we think of these hardened, tough, gruff people. But I tell you, if you met Don Mann today, he's one of the most gentle, kind people. But don't let that gentle and kind demeanor fool you with the inner toughness and resiliency that he's developed over his years as a triathlete, as a world athlete, as an author, TV personality, and Navy SEAL. So, Don, thanks for sticking around and doing this next segment with us. I appreciate having you.
Oh, you're very welcome, Dr. Jensen. It's a pleasure.
So in the first segment, we talked about principles of overcoming obstacles and some of the things that Don has been able to draw from his experiences when it comes to staying the course and not becoming too overwhelmed or discouraged when you're trying to meet the goal, when you have obstacle after obstacle, challenge after challenge. After all, it's the challenges that truly make the value of attaining our goal and mission. But for this segment, we're going to delve a little bit deep and get to know Don Mann a little bit better on a personal level as we draw from him and we pull out some of the experiences and history that he had on his journey to becoming who he is today. So Don, let's go back to the beginning. Yeah, let's go back to the beginning. Do you remember, maybe you were a really young boy, maybe it was in high school, but at what point, when and why did you decide to become a Navy SEAL?
Look, Dr. Jensen, I can say I remember a moment when I was in 7th grade, and my mother asked me what I wanted for Christmas. And I knew I loved music, and I knew I loved exercise. So I was thinking if I asked for some music equipment, I would go that direction in my life. But if I asked for some exercise equipment, I would go that direction. So it's either going to be a musical career, which I have zero talent, so I chose the right direction, or it was going to be a physical career. So I got some weights, and I started lifting weights. And to let you know the type of kid I was, I would walk into my classroom and sit in the back and just hope the teacher would never ask me anything. I was very shy. I didn't have any confidence in myself. I was a little skinny kid, and I didn't play any sports because I was too embarrassed to play for sports and try out for any teams. I didn't have any confidence at all until I started developing a stronger mindset. And then I started thinking, boy, I'm starting to exercise. My arms are getting bigger. My shoulders getting people are starting to comment, you look strong. And it started giving me a little hope that I had something going there. It wasn't school and it wasn't sports, but I started getting fit. We talk about the greatest generation. I love that generation, and I hope we have generations like that in the near future. My father was part of the greatest generation. And when the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor, my father was in high school, and he quit high school and he joined the Navy to help defend our country. And so did my 2 uncles, his 2 brothers, and his sister. So my grandparents had 4 stars on the door because all 4 of their kids, they were called to go to war and they went. And so I had that sense of patriotism in me and the sense that I liked physical fitness. As my mindset was getting stronger and stronger and stronger, I was thinking, well, I'm going to start playing sports, backyard sports. Hey, then I started realizing I'm getting a little bit better because I was exercising. Then I started thinking I have to do something and not defending our country, but wanted to serve and do my time in the country. As a military person, we weren't at war, so I didn't look at it as defending our country, but I wanted to serve. So then I was thinking, maybe I can join the Marines. I was thinking, God, that's some tough training. And then I heard about the SEAL community. I was thinking, oh, that's even tough. Who am I? I'm nobody. But all I had to do, those 4 steps, get stronger, faster every day. I learned more about the SEAL community, and I was trying to do good for people. And I got to Buds, and by the time I got to Buds SEAL training, I was so excited, and I had trained for 4 years with the mission focus that I am going to train really, really hard for 4 years until I can get my orders to go to SEAL team and the SEAL team training, which is called Buds. I went to Buds, everything, I was prepared, I was trained, and people looked at me like, you're, you're really prepared for this. People were dropping out left and right. We started with 125 people and finished with 23. It's tough. It's the toughest military training in the world. But I didn't properly prepare it in everything. I did all the push-ups and sit-ups and paddling and all that stuff you can do. But there was one day where we had to stand on the side of the pool, do a forward flip in the air, land in the water, swim underwater, do a flip turn underwater, and swim back 50 meters. And
Wow.
the instructor says, don't quit. Every one of you have the lung capacity to do this. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be hard, but don't quit. If you pass out underwater, we'll pull you up. So for 4 years, all I wanted to do was be a SEAL. And everything I ate was to get stronger. Every time I go to sleep, so I'd wake up and be stronger and fitter and more rested for my next workout. I was working out 4 to 8 hours a day, and the weekends even longer because I didn't have to work on the weekends. And I was ready until this day. And then I did my forward flip. I went underwater. I started swimming underwater, and my head started to hurt, and I really needed to breathe. And then it was really, really hurting. I did my flip turn on the other edge. I was coming back, and I go, oh my God, this is hurting so much. It felt like an ice pick. And then I quit. I surfaced. I couldn't take it anymore. They said, get over there, quitter. And I quit. My life fell apart on me. I wanted nothing else in life but to be a SEAL. And myself and so many other people quit. Everybody but 8 people in the class quit. And they said, but they didn't even look at you when you quit. Being a quitter is the worst thing in the world in the SEAL community. They said these people gave because they're a little uncomfortable. All they had to do was keep going. And if they passed out underwater, we would have pulled them up. But no, they felt bad for themselves. They started making excuses. Oh, my head hurt, or whatever the lame excuse might be. But they quit. We don't want to deal with these people. I tell you, I felt worse ever in my life that day. I felt about that big. And then the instructor said, you want to give him another chance? And the 8 or so guys who passed it said, yeah, let's give him another chance. I said a prayer. I said, okay, no matter what, I will never, ever quit again, ever. That was the last time I ever quit anything. I did my flip turn, went underwater, was going back, and my head was hurting so badly. I wanted to breathe so badly. I was swimming back, And when I woke up, they pulled me out of the pool and I was frothing at the mouth, and I became a SEAL. And so I tell you that because it was a few years later, we were doing a ship attack, a hostage rescue, a training exercise, and we're diving for 4 hours in the middle of the night on a swimming pole, and everybody has to swim on that pole, which makes diving harder. And you can't go below 30 feet and you can't go over 4 hours because the oxygen becomes toxic. And it's pitch black, and we're trying to find the ship we're supposed to attack. And we're going over the 4 hour mark. We don't have lights or anything, but I was trying to look at my watch, and I was the medic. I was thinking, oh my God, this dive is going bad. We're over 4 hours. We finally found our ship, and we attached a line underneath the ship. And we took off our fins, attached it to the line, took off our weight belts, attached it to the line, off our, it's not scuba tanks, it's a breathing apparatus of pure oxygen, attach it to the line, and it's pitch black, and you're just going up and down with the surge. And all of a sudden, I was breathing, and then everything stopped. I couldn't get a breath in. And I was thinking, oh no, what's going on? And they always taught us, don't get caught underwater under a ship because the enemy will throw grenades in the water and they kill everybody. And I was saying, I can't breathe. There is nothing. Went through 3 times my procedures. Oxygen mask was up, the valve was up, the oxygen was turned on, and the hoses weren't kinked. I went through those procedures 3 times. So I shook my buddy's fin above me, and he came down, and I did this to his mouth. I couldn't see him, but he didn't have a mouthpiece, and I was hoping we could buddy breathe. I was thinking, oh my God, I'm going to blow this whole mission. So I started swimming to the bottom of the ship, and I felt the bottom of the ship And if the ship is that big, you're like so small under there. You don't
Right.
really know where you are on the ship. And I was walking my way to the side of the ship, and my head was hurting so much more than it did in the pool that day. But they taught me, don't quit, keep going, don't quit. So I just kept going and going and going. And the ship was obstructed by this huge obstacle, no pun intended, but there's a huge obstacle there, and I couldn't surface. And it was pitch black. Nobody knew where I was under the. And I did have two thoughts that went through my mind, and I really wish those thoughts never came, but I got rid of them as soon as they did. One is just take a deep breath, and the pain will be gone. You'll drown, you'll kill yourself, but the pain will be gone. And I was thinking, they'll never find my body. And then I was thinking, why did I have that thought? That's how a quitter thinks. All I have to do is do what they taught me in buds. And I just kept kicking and kicking. And it was getting deeper and deeper and colder and darker. And I just made it to the front of the ship somehow. Take off your mask so you're not reflecting light. I swam around the side of the ship. We climbed up the ship, rescued the hostage. Perfect, successful mission. And it's all about not giving up, having a huge obstacle in the way, starting from being somebody who thought I could absolutely do nothing in the world, finishing that mission, and then going on to become the advanced SEAL training officer at SEAL Team 6. So the journey from being this kid who was afraid to sit in front of class or doing any sports to having the motivation to go to SEAL training, to overcoming missions like that, and then teaching this last 40 years. It's a mission that it was a journey that was accomplished because of each and every day getting a stronger mindset and having goals to go after.
Wow. What a, geez, I could sit and listen to these stories all day long. Unfortunately, we don't have that time, but I want to unpack a few of the things that you talked about, but I could sit, we're going to have to do this again another time, Don. This has been fascinating for me, but I want to touch on a few of the things that you said. First of all, your flip dive, that training activity where you gave up and then you did it again. I think it is a powerful, powerful lesson to be learned for all of us. And I hope my listeners got that every one of us are going to have, I don't like the word failure, but let's be honest, we're all going to fail from time to time. We're all going to have, I call them setbacks. And when we're traveling, who here has been have you ever been on a road trip and you missed an exit, or you were so distracted and you ended up adding an extra 20, 30 minutes, an hour to your road trip? I've done it many times and it's frustrating, but do we just give up and go home? No, we backtrack and we get back on course. And I love that. You did give it all that you had, or at least all that you thought you had that first time. And yeah, there was some not good feelings that went along with that. But I would think that you'd agree, Don, that added fuel to your desire, to that fire of desire to do better next time. And when you got the opportunity, you took advantage of it. So I want my audience to realize, I want my teenagers and young adults to realize that that is a principle that can be born in each of us. Yes, we're going to have setbacks. Yes, we're going to have times when we feel like at our lowest, but it doesn't mean we have to stop. It doesn't mean we quit trying. And Don, let me ask you this. I love that you said, and I made a decision that I was never going to quit again. When you got out of the water the second time, what was your overall feeling? What was that overall attitude, a feeling that came over you when you did realize that you could do it?
A great sense of relief that I lived through it all. Um, a sense of like empowerment, like all you have to do is not quit, never quit, just keep going, keep going. And I wasn't strong enough when I was in buds to do that because they did quit in training. And I had an instructor pull me out of the water and an instructor encourage me to keep going. I just I just needed someone with more strength than I had at the time. And that's another lesson too that I learned that we always say check ego at the door. Nobody is that good ever or that smart or that strong where they don't need help. Open your arms, open your eyes for people reaching to give you help and take the help and also provide help to others. But yeah, it was a feeling like um almost invincible. I like to say this without sounding cocky or overconfident. When I got hurt on Mount Everest a few years ago, I was climbing the tallest mountain in the world, and I like to take on big, big, big challenges, and like going through SEAL training, the toughest military training in the world. Whatever it is that I'm taking on as a challenge, I like to be quiet and humble, and inside of me, my mind is saying, bring it on. I welcome the pain. I know this is going to hurt. Anything worth doing is going to be hurt. It's going to hurt. It's going to be painful. It's going to be uncomfortable. But that's why not everybody does these things, because they're not willing to accept a little bit of uncomfort or a little bit of pain. I pretty much came up with the attitude is bring it on. I'll take everything I can. If it's too much, I'll simply pass out. And that's how I live. um, Pain, uncomfort, discomfort, being uncomfortable, all that. It's not a bad thing because it gets you over the next level where you can do something bigger and better and more challenging. So, and I don't mean to sound like a masochist, but um, I do think there's a certain amount of pain or discomfort that anybody's going to go through, like you went through studying to be a dentist, all the tests and the late nights you had. That wasn't pleasant, I'm sure, so many times. And so I just believe I welcome the pain, bring it on. If it's worth doing, it's going to be uncomfortable or painful at times.
And that's the important thing is that I think it is so powerful. It's such a powerful thought to realize that just because something can be uncomfortable, so to speak, doesn't mean it's not worth doing. And furthermore, the reward waiting for you is far more greater than the negative part of the journey, right? In other words, the reward and the feeling of self-improvement, self-confident is so much more powerful than any devastating effects of the journey or the process itself. In fact, I like it in part 2 of the book. I've got to get these quotes in. These readers or my listeners have got to hear this. But in part 2, I love the title of it. Getting out of our own way. Sometimes we are our own biggest obstacle, aren't we, Don? Sometimes we make the obstacle bigger than it needs to be. And sometimes we get out of our own way. And you say, many of us lack a complete understanding of what we are truly capable of. We can lead, which can lead to roadblocks that prevent us from reaching our goals. I want each of my listeners to recognize that. Don't let your own brain blocks be the ultimate roadblock. Think about it, learn how to overcome it, and then, as Don says over and over again, just keep moving forward. One micro step or baby step at a time. Don, I want to go back to the other experience you had in that ship. What an amazing experience, I bet, to look back on. I bet you draw upon that over and over again in your life. But I'm going to liken that. There you are under that ship, feeling small, tiny, dark, alone, and even thoughts of giving up, but not just giving up, but ending it all, right? And I know that I have listeners that at some point in their life have felt that way somehow, somewhere. I hope that single powerful moment that Don just brought up of his realization that no, I don't have to give up. But if I just keep swimming, keep kicking those flippers and go little bit at a little bit at a little bit at a time, I'm going to get where I need to get. And Don, I can imagine the feeling that you had with those hostages. That's got to be one of the crowning events of your career, if not of having that kind of experience where not just a country was depending on you, but an individual or individuals were depending on you and that you came through for them.
Boy, for hostage rescue missions, absolutely. Of course, we're going through that right now in Israel, and we have so many hostages. We don't know where they are in those tunnels right now. They've been in there for over 90 days, and it's the biggest thing going on our military side and our allies trying to find these hostages. Just imagine being taken out of your home and being placed in the tunnel for 90 days. Yeah, hostage rescue mission is probably the most rewarding mission a person can be on if they're in the military, because you're saving a life, and to pull these people out of harm's way, it's like God's work, really. It's very, very powerful. Yeah.
Absolutely. And it kind of is a fancy or a convenient segue into one of the other travel tips in my book about the power of getting lost in the service of others. When we turn our attention, what we seem to bring out the best in ourselves when we can focus on the needs of others. Now, obviously, when you were in that mission and other hostage rescue missions, you're not necessarily worried about their happiness. You're worried about their life. You're worried about them being able to live and experience freedom again someday. And of course, but that is, even though it was your job, even though it was your training, you are doing something outside of yourself for somebody else, not just the hostages, but for your country as a whole. And one way that I talk about is overcoming obstacles is to start removing the focus from yourself and start looking at the needs of others. And pretty soon, your own problems start to seem not so big when you begin to look around yourself. There's that saying, and I've experienced it. I've had the opportunity to have some incredible adventures hiking some of the most beautiful peaks. I haven't done Everest, and I don't know, Don, I'm a little over the hill. I don't know if that's still on my list. I know you'll probably reprimand me for saying that, but I have had the opportunity to have some wonderful hikes. I've hiked Half Dome in Yosemite Park. I've hiked Angel's Landing in Zion's, and it doesn't matter how beautiful or how hard the hike was. If you look, there's always going to be a mountain higher, except when you're on Mount Everest. There's always going to be something a little bit higher and something else to go. But we should never let that deter us from looking behind us and going, look what I just rose from. Look at the trail I just hiked and look where I came from. And the exhilarating feeling that we get when we've done something hard, even though there can be other things down the road that can be even harder. For example, when you finally climbed that ship or you finally was able to relieve those hostages, there were other hostages, other parts of the world that needed you, but it didn't deter us from experiencing the joy, happiness, and satisfaction from accomplishing one difficult task at a time.
That's right. My favorite part about being a member of the SEAL teams for all those years is that you're surrounded by people who think like that. It's and I once heard that when you're a baby, you're a child, see yourself as the center of the world. Everything is about you. And people were out of that thought at certain ages, but as teenagers, people start thinking, well, the world is not, I'm not the center of the world. When those people even go a little bit further and thinking, well, I'm not going to worry about my needs and my wants and my concerns. Jimmy over here could use my help. My focus is going to be on helping Jimmy out. I know Mary needs some help. She's not doing very well in her studies right now. I'm pretty good in that subject. I'm going to go help her. Or the guy over there, the old man over there, he's struggling trying to get all those leaves off his lawn. Let me just go help him. And once people start thinking about just helping others, their lives, and there's all these medical reasons why this happens, hardcore medical facts why helping people is good for you, but your life becomes happier and you feel you feel you're a better person. And then you think, well, if I did that, now I can do more, and it's infectious. And that attitude's infectious, and the people you help will never forget you, and you'll have a bond with that person for maybe a lifetime. And I really don't know anything really more important than helping other people. right now. It took me a while to think like that. But if your young listeners and teenagers start thinking like that a little bit now, I think it's going to make for a more enriching life for all of them.
Absolutely. And, as I mentioned before, the more that you give of yourself, the more inner strength you find in yourself. It doesn't take a lot of effort. In fact, it's very easy to do something nice every day for some people, but just a simple act can have a profound effect. At least it does for me. When just something simple like going into the grocery store. In fact, it was just the other day, we got a brand new grocery store just down the road from our house. By the way, it's one of these huge grocery stores. And I was in a hurry. I was running in to grab something for my wife and I was running back out and there was a little elderly lady just trying to unload the groceries into her trunk. And she had, now most of us can heave a 12 pack of soda pretty easy, but to frail 85-year-old hands might be difficult. And I could see she was having a hard time just getting simple grocery bags. And so I went and I helped her with those 12 packs. And she smiled and she said, I was wondering how I was going to get those into my truck. Now, something that seems so easy, monotonous to us, when we just take a moment and look around us and we recognize what we can do for others, that truly helped that lady in that one moment. And I had a wonderful drive home thinking about it. Now, we kind of switched gear. We went from service from overcoming obstacles and believing in ourselves, but they kind of go hand in hand. One of the ways that we overcome obstacles, one of the ways that we build our drive, build our self confidence is when we see the effect and the power that we can have on other people. In fact, Don, we're about to the end of the hour here. I'm going to just share one last thought from your book. Um, you know, m- you know, I- the book that we follow, Life Map for Teens, has the subtitle of 8 travel tips to help navigate your journey to happiness and success. And I feel like this is the perfect accompanying thought to go with that. Don says, having confidence in your own abilities and a strong enough mindset to avoid feeling defeated before you ever leave the starting gate are essential traits for finding success. Success, success doesn't happen the very next thought. It's not step two, is it? Step one is not deciding to do something. Step two is not success. There is a myriad of, like in Don's 4 steps, there's many micro steps or baby steps and phases and areas that we need to get to. But over time, we can realize we've navigated the difficulties. We've overcome one challenge at a time. And that's the key, is to focus on the challenge one at a time and to find the solution and the way to get around it. And pretty soon, we'll be able to, even if it's halfway through, stop, look back and go and say to ourselves, wow, I didn't think I could do this at the very beginning. I'm halfway there. I'm almost there. And I love having a guest like Don Mann on the show that reminds all of us that he's no different than all of us when it comes to the human temptations to self doubt ourselves, to experience moments of defeat and challenges, but to not let those deter us. Don, it has been just a pleasure having you. And I hope we can do this again in the future. But I'm going to ask you one last thing. Of all of the different experiences you've had, of all of the lessons that you've learned, if you had to sum up your life message in 1, 2, or 3 simple sentences, or one piece of advice to my listeners, what would it be?
Well, Dr. Jensen, I would say that a lot of the limitations we put on ourselves, a lot of insecurities and weaknesses we might perceive in ourselves, um, it might not be the case. I believe that most of our limitations are self-perceived, and we're not as weak or as inefficient or capable as we all think we can be in certain areas of life. A lot of the limitations we place on ourselves are self-perceived limitations, and they can be easily. You just have to identify your weaknesses, identify your strengths, identify your limitations, and then think about it. Is this self-perceived or is this really a limitation? I think in most cases, people are going to realize self-perceived. I can get through this. I shouldn't even be considered a limitation. I can get over this. That's not a limitation. Boom. I've just moved forward. Forward sustained progress and a forward, never give up that forward sustained movement in your goal setting or going after the goals. Even if you get set back a little bit, stand back up and go after forward sustained movement and keep going toward that mission. And those limitations you have, or you think you have, some might just be self-perceived and not actual limitations at all.
I love that. In other words, we are more capable than we think we are. And most, if not all, challenges are more surmountable than we think they are. Don, it's been a pleasure. It's been great. His book is Overcoming Obstacles, but please check the show notes. Go to his website. He has a host of, and by the way, these books are a quick and easy read. Also, he and his collaborators are the authors of an incredible fiction series on special forces and missions. So if you like fiction, if you like special mission novels, look no further than his website and the connections that he has to his books. I hope that each of my listeners leave this episode and the previous episode with recognizing that here we stand, and I don't mean to make Don uncomfortable, but I stand here next to a decorated soldier, a decorated athlete, and an individual who has overcome and accomplished so much. But he started from where a lot of us start, and that's the feelings of, can I do this? And if we take step number one and change that sentence or that question to, I can do this, and we take one step at a time, you can change your world of existence one step at a time. And each of you listening, you are tomorrow's leaders. You are tomorrow's role models. And I hope that this episode, these last two episodes with a decorated veteran like Don and the great individual that he is, not just for what he's done, but for what he's doing now in helping to empower, inspire individuals to become their best selves. I hope that that will serve as a little bit of fuel to each one of you to reach down and to light that fire, to light that tinder and to let it grow within you so that you can experience the roaring warmth and brightness of hope and determination. And it's my hope that each one of us can do it. And until next time, Don, thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.